I didn't make it to McDonald's to get my my traditional unsweet tea. So
Why
I guess
not?
I'll have to laziness. So I guess I'll just have to settle for shitty ass Miller Lite instead.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, I really it's weird. I really don't like Miller Lite.
Yeah.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Rick and Morty podcast, Upon Us Among Us. My name is Brian, and with me, as always, is my friend Jeff. Jeff, nice racist name, by the way.
Whatever, bro. Whatever.
It's so awesome that a couple weeks ago, Rick and Morty made that joke by talking to Dr. Wong, I believe it was,
yes,
in the Pickle Rick episode. And then today, ESPN removed a sports commentator whose name was Robert Lee, who was an Asian dude because of racism.
Because he had a racist name, by the way.
Yeah, racist name. So, way to call it, creators of Rick and Morty.
Timing impeccable as always.
As always. You can also catch Jeff and I and our friend Dave on the Nothing Important podcast, where we talk to people more famous than we will ever be. That's on iTunes or nothingimportantpodcast.com. Or you can check us out on our Better Call Saul podcast. It's Saul Goodman, the Better Call Saul podcast. It's on iTunes. It's saulgoodman.com. Or, like this podcast, you can find it on TV Time, the TV Time app. Get it on your smartphone. It's pretty cool. You can chat, meme, post, converse, video, and overall interact with other fans of your favorite TV shows. It's pretty damn addicting, and my favorite feature of that, Jeff, is when you mark off what TV shows that you've watched and how many seasons you've watched, it'll tell you in how many days of your life you have wasted watching those shows.
Yeah, so if you want to be really sad, you can go ahead and log all that. I got about probably not even a tenth of the way through the shows that I watch or have watched, and had to quit once that tally started going up because it just made me reflect poorly upon myself.
Right. Exactly. So, TV Time. Make sure to download it today. That is probably exactly the kind of ringing endorsement they thought about when they asked us to participate.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, the Whirly Dearly Conspiracy, Season 3, Episode 5. Synopsis is, Rick takes Jerry on an adventure at Morty's insistence, and best skills as a mother are put to the test, and Summer has body issues. Your thought, Jeff?
Yes, and yes.
You agree?
I agree with the synopsis of the television show.
Overall, what did you think of this episode, Jeff?
I liked this one quite a bit more than the Vindicators one, but man, they are getting hard with the hitting people in the emotions this season.
Yeah,
I think that they're doing a lot of introspection, whether on themselves and just people or whatever. But I mean, there was this, much like the Whirly Dearly itself, was a roller coaster that led to death. So,
all right, nice.
What about you?
I was just going to go as simply I liked it, but you've kind of really kind of shown me up. No, I really liked the episode. I feel at times there was some things I missed, and I'm not exactly sure how I missed them or why I missed them. I think the crazy dream sequence in the middle threw me off.
That's fair.
But we can go through the episode, and I can talk about how clueless and I am when it comes to these things, and we'll chat about it a bit and wrap this bitch up.
Sounds good.
All right, so episode begins. Jerry is wallowing in his shitty-ass life in presumably a Motel 6.
Yeah.
And if it isn't a Motel 6, it might be a Super 8.
It is something in between or below. I like to equate it to that small-town Route 66 hotel that was popular 70 years ago and then is just terribly dilapidated now, mostly where prostitutes and drug dealers hang out. And divorcees.
Yeah, heavy opening. Poor Jerry. See, I like Jerry. I have a soft spot for Jerry, and his life just sucks so bad right now.
Well, that's also the point of the episode, I think, and it comes out later. Everyone feels sorry for Jerry all the time. Mm-hmm. And this just, kind of hit that point home. But again, yeah, I also felt terrible for that opening. Just seeing him be there and sad and just wallow in his self-pity, not knowing what to do, yearning for his family and the normalcy he had. Right before Rick busts in the door and pulls him out of his room naked.
A nice homage to the pilot episode where Rick does very much the same thing to Morty.
Mm-hmm.
Pre Morty being a badass, Morty's kind of this season, man. Morty's like incredibly assertive. Shortly following Rick removing Jerry from the hotel, I enjoyed the scene of them kind of not really having a heart-to-heart, but just discussing the situation while they were in the spaceship hurtling towards the Rick and Jerry adventure.
Yes.
And Jerry, although Jerry suspects that it's an execution, he seems pretty resigned to the fact that he's going to die.
As he should, I guess. I mean, if you know what Rick's done and have seen it, which he has, on first-hand occasion many a time, why wouldn't you think that he's just going to pull you out and murder you? As happy as it was. But the fact that they got to sit around and talk about it, I think, should have given Jerry a clue that he wasn't going to be executed, only because it probably would have already been done by now.
Maybe. I kind of took it as two ways. One, he was just resigned to it just because he couldn't prevent it if he wanted to, because like you said, he's seen what Rick has done. He knows Rick's deal, how Rick is always one step ahead and apparently half cyborg. But also maybe he wants it to happen. Like, he's so depressed and now he's drugging ass naked out of his hotel room. He's at such a low point. Maybe he was just resigned to it because he's too much of a coward to take his own life, but he was finally going to have the sweet release of death.
Oh, how sweet it would be sometimes. Yeah. I totally agree with your statement.
Did Rick pack him clothes, or did Rick end up making the pants for him? Because Rick told him he could make pants for him. He can make pants for him right now. Very Big Lebowski-esque, by the way.
Yeah, very much so. I'm going to guess he just made him his whole outfit because he was in standard Jerry uniform when they landed at the what Jerry thought was a fancy intergalactic truck stop.
Yeah, I was like, wow, he made him a whole new suit, which is nice, a whole new outfit. So
he's got to feel fancy.
Yeah, he went beyond the pants, so that was a nice gesture by Rick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he could have been shirtless and awkward the whole time, but no, he went whole coverings.
But it turns out that Rick isn't there to kill Jerry. He's just kind of been pestered or I guess tricked by Morty into taking Jerry on an adventure because he just needs a win, man. He just needs something good in his life.
Which goes back to show Rick kind of cares, as much as he hates it, about Morty, even though he blamed it all on just it screwing up his own adventures selfishly. That he was going to do this to make Morty shut up. They have a little bit of bonding time, and you actually get to see them kind of again care about each other or seem to care about each other. But that could also just be because Rick's a huge sociopath.
maybe Rick actually wanted to make it up for Morty for being such a miserable prick last week.
Very true. Very possible.
Because he was. Remember we talked about that, and everybody saw Rick was in super dick mode in the Vindicators episode, and now he went from being a super asshole to ruining everything Morty wanted to do to somehow going along with what Morty wants
to make him happy. Really, but it's really to make him happy, so he'll essentially shut up and keep going on his adventures he has to go on with Rick.
Right. We kind of talked about how Morty might one day snap and kill Rick and all that, but I think the worst thing that Morty can do is just not participate in the adventures. Like, I think that'd actually be worse than trying to kill Rick is just not participate in the adventures.
Yeah, especially since we know how much the Ricks and Mortys are tied to each other, that we've seen all throughout season 2. Going universe to universe and seeing all the Ricks have their Mortys and all the Mortys have their Ricks, no matter how ridiculous they are or what professions they have, if they're lawyers or whatnot, or if they're hammers or whatever. Rick knows that he has to keep his Morty happy, especially because they are, essentially Morty and Rick prime, as far as the universe goes, so they have to stay together, whether either of them like it or not.
Right, he's the one true Morty, and Rick, the Rick that we follow is the Rickest Rick. The adventure isn't really so much an adventure as it is Rick bringing Jerry to the one place where Jerry cannot die or be harmed, but just far enough away to where they could craft like a plausible explanation as to why they were far away on some crazy adventure, but nothing can happen to Jerry, so it's absolutely super safe. Yeah,
that immortality sphere is quite the invention there, as you see the little kids running around, shooting each other in the head. Yeah. I think most of us thought that we had that when we were in college. An immortality field around us a lot of the time.
Right. Some of the things we've done, yes, I would agree. I would definitely agree with that. Rick and Jerry have a nice little bonding moment there over the drinks.
Yeah, sitting next to 3 elephant tusk guy at the bar, trying to get their story straight. So they really don't have to do anything. They're going to stay there and play around at the amusement park and just get plastered, and then go home and tell everyone it was amazing. Everyone will be happy for the most part, and go back to try to get things back to somewhat normal.
Yep, very much like the Everybody Loves Raymond episode, where Raymond, his brother, and his dad are supposed to go to counseling, but they don't. They go gambling at the track instead.
I have no idea what you're talking
about. That is an actual episode of Everybody Loves Raymond, I promise you.
Well, great.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, so Rick is kind of slyly a dick to Jerry.
Of course.
When they're just kind of touching base and kind of feeling out the awkwardness of hanging out together, right? Like having some drinks, just bullshit, and kind of feeling each other out, and kind of come to that weird point where, like, okay, we can kind of live with each other. And Rick pisses off Jerry just enough. Jerry, in disgust, goes to the bathroom, presumably to go to the bathroom and also to get away for Rick for a minute. And then he's smushed through an air vent.
If it's happened once, it's happened 100 times.
Mm-hmm. And he's captured by Risotto Groupon, which, excellent naming by the writers of Rick and Morty.
Yeah, especially for a restaurant manager.
Yeah, Risotto Groupon. And he's not even the manager. He's the assistant manager.
Oh, I apologize. I gave him too much title there.
Right, and he wants Jerry to assassinate Rick on the Whirly Durly. Excellent naming, by the way, for the roller coaster, the Whirly Durly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It definitely whirls and durls.
Yes, it does, multiple times. Well, there's at least one whirl that's followed by 3 durls.
Something like that. I didn't follow the logic on how many whirls versus durls because I don't know the difference. So I mean that's me, but it's also an alien amusement park. So
right, exactly.
I'm going to blame it on that.
Right, there's one portion of it where it conveniently travels outside the protective mortality or immortality field, and they say, hey, you can get rid of your Rick problem by taking him on the Whirly Durly. Because who doesn't want to go on the Whirly Durly?
Everyone wants to go on the Whirly Durly.
Exactly, it's the coolest ride in the universe. So here's where I'm a little mixed up. So Risotto Groupon was speaking as if there's only one portion where the writers leave the immortality field. It's like on the 3rd Durly after the first Whirly. But in the scene where they're actually on the Whirly Durly, it appears to me that there's 2 parts of it where they actually go beyond the immortality field.
I think that's because you've got rings spinning on rings spinning on rings. So, and that whole thing is rotating like a gyroscope. So the same portion, while it's moving around, could probably stick out multiple times. So yeah, there is only one piece of it, but it's like an eclipse. Brian. It's just everything just has to line up magically for just a few moments, so everyone can be inspired and everything can go dark.
Exactly. Risotto allows Jerry to leave without agreeing to kill Rick because Risotto is not like Rick. He's basically giving Jerry freedom of choice.
But he's really not, because he knows that deep down that he's going to do it anyway. That he's that kind of, I don't know, ballsless person that he's being given an option now, so he's going to hold it in his back pocket, and he's going to try to be a better person. And then Risotto, I'm sure in the back of his head, knows that he's going to piss him off again.
Mm-hmm.
And then so Jerry's going to pull that out. Yeah, Jerry's going to pull that out, and they're going to do it. He's playing the long game, the long con.
Right, he was gaslighting.
Yes.
Risotto was gaslighting Jerry to kill Rick. Meanwhile, Beth is... we see Beth back at the Smith residence, and she's building a sculpture out of horse hooves and at least a portion of a horse leg.
Yeah, that was gross. That was just weird. I couldn't figure out what it was at first until I was really staring at it, because I was trying to pay attention to the story and the dialogue. But yeah, it was comedic to me that she was using glue on horse hooves, which are traditionally made of horses.
Right.
Or glue is made of horse
hooves. She's using horse parts to use. She's using horse to connect horse to horse, much like in her normal job as a surgeon, as a horse surgeon.
Deep,
indeed. Summer breaks in asking if she's hot because apparently Ethan broke up with her.
What a dick.
What a dick. For Trisha, because Trisha has really big porn star titties.
Well, fair enough then. Go Ethan.
I mean, yeah. I mean, what's a man to do, really?
Right. When given those choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, like, even girls like boobs, right? Like, who doesn't like boobs?
Yeah.
Right? Right? Who can blame Ethan?
Well, obviously, just Summer. So, at this point, anyway.
If anything, she's being extremely irrational about this.
Of course, like a teenage girl.
Right?
So,
yep. Some nice continuity, though. I forgot about Ethan, but she's been with Ethan since, I think, the first season, I believe.
Yeah, since, what was it? He first appears in the Christmas episode. Which is that's the
Anatomy Park.
Yes, Anatomy Park. Yeah, Anatomy Park. So that's episode 3. So yeah, quite a long time there for them to keep a background character around.
Yeah, pretty decent relationship length. Absolutely. She tries to enlarge her breast using Rick's what did he call that? Morph sizer? The morph sizer?
Yeah, the XE or something like Mm-hmm. The morph sizer XE or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, she got greedy. None of this would have ever happened. None of what happens to her coming up would have happened if she didn't get greedy.
The whole thing. She got greedy and clumsy. So it turns out. She couldn't just stop and just take the two. And then she got clumsy turning around and had to try and even them out. I mean, because they're naturally going to be lopsided a little bit. I mean, that's just the way of everything. In the human body. Yeah.
It's just nature.
But then, when it happened to be her arm and her head and her ass and everything else, things go awry. Mm-hmm. And then we get to turn into the episode, the B plot essentially turns into a very dark Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Rick, Morty kind of recognizes what apparently, once again, Morty has had prior knowledge of this machine. He seems totally, unfazed, which I guess nothing should probably faze him anymore. But he seems very familiar with the machine and what's going on. He seems to know exactly what's going on.
At least familiar enough not to touch it and know that Rick needs to be involved because he doesn't know what the hell's going on with it.
Right.
But Beth being a doctor and a rational human being thinks that she can take care of it without Rick's help, which ends up turning everything even worse.
Yep, hubris, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Hubris. All right, So glad to see finally the context of Gene and how he needs to mind his own goddamn business.
Yeah. I was waiting for that. But I don't understand why Gene wasn't paying attention long enough to see a 50-foot inside-out person run away.
Yeah,
he's going to put his nose in their goddamn business. Then maybe he should have said something about a big inside-out human muscle flesh pod moseying along the street.
Thanks for the heads up, Gene, you dick.
What an asshole neighbor.
Right? All he had to say was, all right, fair enough. I'm sticking my nose in it. It's none of my business. But, dude, your monster's gone. Which is terrible. Well, first off, I guess Summer as a monster must be awful light on her feet. Nobody heard or felt her leave.
Maybe it's part of being inside out. I don't know. I've never been inside out like that before. So
it's padded. Maybe it's padded.
There you go. All of the muscle flesh on the outside makes you a little bit more aerodynamic.
Mm-hmm. Jerry and Rick are hanging out, having conversations, and Rick, kind of admits to Jerry, like, all right, look, I'm the dick, and I definitely didn't help your situation with Beth. like I can know about. He's owning up to the fact that he probably wasn't putting the best ideas in her head as far as her relationship with Jerry.
Yeah, but this is all under duress too at the same time. Mm-hmm. Since Jerry essentially admits out loud to Rick, which I think this is the first time. Well, it might not be. It might be the second or third time. That Rick ruined his marriage, and Rick ruined his life, and they're getting into a very heated fight now. And obviously Rick's pissed off because, well, Jerry just tried to kill him, whether he knew it or not. He wasn't going to do it himself, obviously, because he's a no-ball pussy. Mm-hmm. But he was going to have other people do it. So you could sit and feel responsible and be sad then afterwards. But, Rick finally lays all the cards out that Jerry ruined his family, not the other way around, by dropping that 20 cc's of Jerry juice into sweet Beth.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, too, that was brought up by that, about how Jerry is actually a predator because he basically uses his pathetic life, his pathetic means of doing things. He uses that as a weapon to draw people to feel sorry for him. That he essentially inserts himself into other people's lives, futures, and goings-ons by being so sad and so pathetic that people take him in. And he's very much like a parasite.
Which I think is, again, like the whole purpose of this episode. Or that's the whole A-line of this episode, is he is pathetic. And yeah, the whole episode is happening because he is pathetic. And he can't deal with it. And it's affecting his son. So now he's pathetic. And right when he's getting on Rick's good side, he ends up trying to kill him because he was pathetic and gave in to Risotto and his requests. And then now he's being pathetic as he's being eaten by a worm creature, trying to get out of it. And, Rick has to save him only because he has to take him back. He can't just lose him now that he's out on the adventure, and Morty knows it. So the whole everything that Jerry is there for is because he is pathetic and kind of has to be there. And it is leeching, exactly like you said, like a parasite.
Mm-hmm. And then that made me think about it, because I kind of like the character of Jerry. I like that he's kind of a wimpy, super pathetic kind of guy. I've said it several times. I feel sorry for him. Everybody shits on him, even though he is many times the most correct and decent person on this entire show. But that's a good point. That's a good turnaround when he started speaking about how he's actually a predator. I started thinking, I'm like, man, you know what? I actually kind of know some people like that. Actually, in real life, know people whose whole persona and ways of doing things is just to be so pathetic that people keep them around.
Yeah, and essentially perpetually sorry for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in ways.
And that goes way beyond the woe is me, because when somebody's constantly like a woe is me person, constantly complaining, and everything is always against them or everybody else's fault but their own, like that kind of person I can blow off. But then as I was thinking about it, there's been people over the course of my lifetime that have been so pathetic that just kind of becomes them. And in a weird way, I've like been friends with them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think so anymore, because especially in my adult life, I surround myself with very, very strong personalities. But I can think of times in high school growing up where there was, a few people who were so pathetic and not really losers, just kind of like, my life is terrible, but I don't have the guts to do anything about it, that you just kind of like befriend them. And, I've lost touch with them after high school, but Rick's whole diatribe there about Jerry's whole method of surviving, I guess you could say. I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, you know what? I actually know people like that from my past, and now maybe I don't like Jerry so much anymore. That's a good point. As much as Rick is a dick, maybe I just don't like him as much anymore, because I wouldn't go back and like those people from my past today.
Right.
Yeah. So
I guess I completely understand that.
Yeah. So I guess going back to what you were saying at the beginning of the episode, where you said, or at the beginning of our discussion tonight, when you were talking about how this season they're really kind of going for emotional ties and such. I didn't understand last week's. Like, I saw you were coming from, but I didn't have that same connection. Like especially the Pickle Rick episode. You said that, you were. Like it kind of hit home a little bit, and I understood it, but like I didn't have the personal connection like that.
Sure.
But like here, this episode 305, I could totally see. I totally agree where you're coming from, because I was like, holy shit, I know people like that. Fuck.
It reminds me of my parents' dog. Or my dog, essentially, that's at my parents' house. My dad found it in a field, and it was abandoned. It's a one-eye pug dog, so a tiny little, and it's the smallest pug dog that we have, and we've had pugs forever. My parents and our family has, and it attached itself to me, and I attached myself to her quite a bit, but thinking about it, it has to do really with just that she is such a sad and pathetic creature. That was abandoned. She can't fend for herself. She's blind. She's kind of deaf. But she's nice and sweet. But she is kind of like a parasite. I mean, she's old now. She's not doing well, but she's there, and we have to take care of her. There's no way around it unless a risotto comes to our house or something and tries to give us a way out, which would be terrible. But I think people see that, or it happens a lot with animals, for people who really overly like animals or really get into it or have them at home. That leeching possibility where it actually drains people of their happiness or what they can do. It's like a combination between a child and an elderly person they have to take care of.
Yeah. All right. Solid. Look at that. Getting deep on A Plummus Among Us. Yeah. So, deep. Before we cut back to Earth, I did enjoy Jerry riding in the pouch of whatever creature that Rick caught using Jerry as a bait.
Yes.
And his balls slapping against Jerry's forehead. And
it's all about the ride.
Yeah, it's all about the journey.
Yeah.
It's not the destination. It's all about the journey. But back on Earth, Beth refuses to call Rick. She doesn't want Rick to help out. She thinks she can figure it out. So instead she calls technical support. There's 3 little tiny aliens that live inside the machine, and she let them out. So, unbeknownst to her, of course, I can't believe I didn't see that coming, but I totally didn't see that coming, and it was just well done. I'm like, oh, shit, like, it's so obvious, because why else would they push a red button on the side of the machine? I literally thought something else was going to happen with the machine, but no, it just helped the little guys escape.
I did one of those, when it happened, because, yes, it was quite amusing, and a classic tech support move. to free yourself from wherever you're encapsulated.
Beth kind of comes to grips with what's going on. She understands that Summer, especially is this a nice allegory for, I'm what I suspect is a woman's teenage years. And seeing as though I have my only 2 children are girls, I absolutely can't wait for this to happen. But
for them to turn themselves inside out?
Yeah. Oh, man. I'm so resistant making a joke about somebody else turning them inside out.
Oh, okay.
All right, back on track. All right, here we go. But obviously, it's a good allegory for body issues that women face, and a very clever take on it, using the whole sci-fi, 50-foot woman, and I don't know if there's ever been a show about somebody turning inside out, but
and Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
And of course,
let us not forget that.
And of course, honey, I blew up the kids. Yes, but she's a good mother. She cares about her daughter, even though she's going through a rough time. And like Rick, apparently has a really hard time sincerely expressing her feelings towards her children, which is obviously a family trait. So she decides that she is going to turn herself giant and inside out. And
before we get there, I just want to point out on the ride to Camp Wada Wada Bada, whatever it was, the camp that they gave up halfway naming.
Right. Yep.
That when they're riding in the car and Morty has the gun sticking out of the back of the station wagon, that is almost 100% taken from Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Really?
Just telling you.
Nice,
Brian.
and I'm glad you brought that up, because unfortunately the mailman, my man.
Oh,
yeah, the man.
Well, this time he's not a simulation, though. Unfortunately.
Yep, and met his untimely demise, but it was by a giant mailbox, which is how I think he'd like to go out.
Right, cruel fate, but he chose that life, so
he died doing what he loved.
My man, everyone.
Indeed.
So then back to the campsite.
Morty sticking up. I guess now this is just his second sister, right? So he seems to be very protective over his second, or I guess his adopted Summer would be a good way to put it.
Yeah, because his real sister's still alive. She's just terribly gross. She's all Cronenberged.
She's all barbarianed out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she's all barbarianed out in Cronenberg world.
Yeah, in Cronenberg world. Yeah, she's all barbarianed out. So this is like his second shot at being a protective brother to his now sister. And Morty, man, he's getting extremely assertive. I touched on this before. He's getting extremely assertive this season. Season 1 Morty, there's no way he could play the cool guy and make the s'mores while giving his little giving his speech to Ethan. That's some evil shit, giving the monologue before you fuck somebody up. No way first season Morty could pull that off. He's
pulling more Sanchez traits out of himself with that little sociopathic rant. As he sits there and just stares at him calmly. Yes, right before Lord knows what happens or what he was going to do.
And you know that he's a real sociopath, because not only does he burn the marshmallow while making the s'more, he burns the whole goddamn s'mores for some reason.
Just to show he just wants to watch the world burn.
All right.
He's going full Joker.
He is going full Joker. Okay, I'll give that. I'll give that to you. All right. Okay. I just thought that was odd. I'm like, why is he burning? Who cooks a s'more like that? Like, who cooks the entire s'more? I was just taken aback, but very
it's
nice.
Like when you see people in movies who are trying to get their point across of something. They're going to do something crazy, and they really are crazy. So they're going to stand there with the lighter underneath their hand and just stare at them while they're burning the bottom of their hand.
Right.
And keep talking. Kind of the same thing. Gotcha. Only a s'more.
Only s'more. Right, yeah. Gotcha. All right. It's about the message. I get it. Okay, it's about the message. While that's going on, Beth and Summer kind of reunite, and speak their awesome monster language. And all I could think about was two inside-out people and how gooey it must be when they touch each other.
Not only gooey, but just extremely painful.
Yeah, or it would sting like a mother.
Everything is nerve endings now. So, yeah, everything would just be... I guess you eventually get over it or get used to it, or you're just in shock the whole time before you're going to die.
Yeah.
But, yeah, sticky and gooey, especially in a forest like that. I mean, who knows what they're tracking along.
Pine needles?
Pine needles and leaves, and probably like a deer or something just stuck to them.
At least one.
Yeah.
At least one.
But yes, gross, very gross.
Somewhere on another planet, Rick and Jerry and Risotto Groupon are mind melding, and this kind of lost me. I didn't understand what the hell was going on. So Risotto goes to shoot Jerry, and Jerry survives because they hit the time warp. You know, the Jerry survives because they hit the time warp, and everybody's minds start melding. I'm not really sure what was going on there.
I believe it has to do with because they were going through a wormhole. So you're going to talk about crazy physics stuff about spaghettiing, and if you're like going into a black hole, the spaghetti effect, and you get stretched out, but everything gets pushed into one singularity. So everything's all mashed together, at least for a point, because they believe wormholes are connecting, or some people believe wormholes connect black holes on both sides. And that's how they bend the universe to where you can get long distances in short periods of time. So in that instance that they are essentially compressed together so much, that's where they're having their spiritual moment.
Right.
And experiencing each other's thoughts and of whatever is going on, and getting their own introspective to each other.
And everybody comes to an understanding except for Rick, right? Jerry kind of somewhat understands where Rick is coming from because of the experience. And Risotto kind of understands where Rick is coming from, and even considers not killing Rick, but Rick just cold-heartedly well, first off, ingeniously steals his gun with a little plunger that comes out of his apparently cybernetic arms.
Yes, we find out that we find out when they're going through the metal detector to get through the security before Rick is drugged, that he has an insane number of cybernetic parts that he's given himself over the past few years, which is probably why he can do all the amazing crap that he does, too, though.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, too. I wasn't really sure how I felt about that. I was like, really, man? I kind of like to think that Rick is just this crazy 65-year-old guy who can do all this shit for whatever reason. And for me, it just took a little fun out of it, knowing that he has all these crazy cybernetic implants.
It's got to make sense to me a little bit, though. I mean, the guy, if he's truly a grandfather, in the stuff that he does, he should have broken his hips. Right, at least a few times, Yeah. So cybernetic, if that just means a hip implant, then fair enough.
But he's capable of amazing things, no doubt. There was just something weird. I don't know, something that just kind of took me aback with the cybernetic implants.
It's kind of an easy out to explain stuff too.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, I guess. And what's funny is, I kind of had a thought about that when they were at the beginning of the episode, when they were on the Whirly Durly, and Risotto's thugs tried to assassinate Rick, and Rick manages to hop on a moving roller coaster, hop to the back car, and beat the shit out of basically dispose of two thugs. I remember thinking, wow, for an old guy, Rick is kind of a badass. He can really do all these badass things. And then they answered it in the same episode. I guess I just would have liked if that was more implied than explicitly shown. I think I would have liked that more.
Sure, it's like, yeah, you found out how the sausage is made, now you don't want to know.
Yeah, yeah, kind of thing. It just kind of took me back a little bit. I was like, I don't know. I don't think I really like that. But but Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland have a successful TV show, and I don't. So who the fuck am I to judge?
Very true. So
very true. Jerry and Rick finally make it home after their excellent adventure, and
that was me doing air guitar.
Nice, Wild
Yes.
Stallions.
Uh-huh.
Rick and Jerry show up back home. They make an agreement, basically, not to fuck up and blow up each other's cover stories and lives, right? But they seem to come to a moment where Rick is satisfied with the conclusion. He's actually, I don't know if he's proud or happy or relieved that little typical 1990s end of the sitcom smirk as he starts walking towards the house.
Yeah, the smirk and nod. I took it he was at least content. Yeah, he was at least content with it, at peace a little bit, and he learned a little something.
Yeah, we've all grown. We've all grown.
Yeah, we've all grown. And then he just turns right around as an asshole.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Jerry, in his newfound confidence, very quickly reverts back to being a leech. And Rick takes the opportunity to be a dick and tells him that he believes in him and shuts the door, offering no assistance whatsoever.
So it's either tough love or just everything went back to normal. One of the two. I can't tell which one's which.
Well, it is a half-hour show, so I guess everything has to go back to normal. I guess it could be tough love, but I would have loved to see it play out because this shows. They have a lot of character progression and such throughout the series. I would have liked to see maybe the back half of the season with Rick actually having some modicum of respect for Jerry. That kind of could have been fun.
We'll see what happens.
Doesn't mean he has to like him, but it would have been fun if he's at least less dismissive and abrasive towards Jerry.
Sure. But we still got 5 episodes to go, and we haven't even seen previews really yet of anything that's going on. So it's very possible still. I still like to think, though, that no matter what agreements they come to, Rick is that vindictive asshole that he always has been, and still won't be able to let it go.
Yeah.
And he's still going to treat Jerry just like shit. And maybe, hopefully, for Jerry's sake, he does grow some balls and can actually stand up for himself in front of his family, in front of Beth, to kind of prove himself later on with this, I don't want to say newfound, but half-assed found sense of confidence, whatever he supposedly gained at the end of this episode as a character.
Yeah, and, you've kind of been tracking it all season. I think besides Summer covering Barbarian Summer, or I guess Cronenberg Summer, in a shootout, that's pretty much everything that was in the trailer. 5 episodes in, halfway through the season.
Yeah.
So
as far as I can remember, at least.
Well, there's the Morty amiibo type thing.
Yeah, but those are new. Those are just new pieces that they threw in at the beginning of the episode. Or obviously, if you look at the last couple episodes or couple seasons, those things, some of them actually happen in episodes, and some of them do not. So it is possible that that little snippet of them of the two the two Summers working together is from an actual episode, or it could just be that clip that they made for the new intro for season 3. They're just thrown in there as a teaser for nothing. Because we never saw Jerry give birth to whatever he was supposed to be giving birth to.
That's
on
true.
The table.
That's very true.
So we'll see. We'll see how it works out. We'll see if they actually gave us anything, or if this was it, as far as the trailer goes. And we're in all brand new territory, uncharted waters, starting next episode.
That's very true. Next episode, the preview for the next episode showed Rick and Morty on an adventure and kind of having a small breakdown because Rick cannot control the adventure. And they actually released months ago an animatic of that very scene. That's a little longer than the preview, where Rick and Morty have a full-fledged breakdown because, for once, as stated, Rick had absolutely zero control over what was going on, and it causes them to emotionally break down.
Maybe that was in the trailer too. I remember seeing that before in the pre-3 stuff that came out. So maybe that was in the trailer too, where completely freaking out, since it was supposed to be. It very much is the darkest season yet.
Yeah, totally. But that's cool too. It's going to be great to see Rick actually severely doubt himself to the point of tears, to actually have an emotional breakdown, which is something completely foreign to the character. We've seen him get a little misty-eyed over Morty and such, but this appears to be an absolute collapse of his sense of well-being.
We've even seen him lose control of situations before, but never freaked out that much
to the point of complete self-doubt.
Yeah.
So it should be an interesting episode next week. Before we sign off, Jeff, are you familiar with Smo Yoho, the guys over at Songify, the Gregory brothers?
I am.
Yeah, for those of you, if for some reason you don't know, you probably heard their work. They've had the Hide Your Kid, Hide Your Wife, that whole thing was the Gregory brothers, who have a YouTube channel called Smo Yoho, where they do a segment or where they do videos called Songify This, and they'll take things like news reports or debates. Like one of my favorite ones is Weird Al moderating the debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and they put it to songs, and of course there's heavy use of auto-tune and such, and then they sync the lyrics to it. But they just literally a couple days before we recorded this very episode came out with a Mr. Poopy Butthole song.
It's excellent. By the way, it made me crack up, and it is so happy. It's very Poopy Butthole.
It is. And I reached out to the Gregory brothers on Twitter, and I said, hey, we do a Rick and Morty podcast. We would be honored if you would let us play the Mr. Poopy Butthole song on our podcast. And super cool dudes within an hour, I think they just replied, like, sure, we'd be honored. And I'm like,
yeah.
No, dude, that's cool for us that you're allowing us to put one of your creations on our podcast. So it's extremely well done. So please make sure to go to YouTube and check out Songify This. It's on the Smo Yoho channel, which is spelled exactly like it sounds. One thing I don't understand, I don't understand what the accent on the yo means, but anyway, Smo Yoho. Make sure to look it up on YouTube. You can find it at Gregory Brothers on Twitter. But we're going to toss in the Mr. Poopy Butthole song as we head out of here. And, Jeff, I won't even mention the Moon Men this time.
Seriously. Okay, that's fine.
Hi, I'm Mr. Poopy Butthole.
We gotta keep an eye out for any zany, wacky characters that pop up.
Ooh, wee! Whatever you want, Rick. We're here to help.
Thanks, Mr. Poopy Butthole. I always could count on you.
Ooh, wee! Ooh, wee! Now this little poopy pants is hungry. Hi, I'm Mr. Poopy Butthole. I've always been here for you guys. Ooh, wee! Ooh, wee! Ha ha! And I always will be. From the bullet shot that I got. You think the Smith family's gonna be okay? These little fellas help me get through the day. The day. The day. Ooh-wee.
Thanks, Mr. Poopy Butthole. I always could count on you.
Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. Now this little poopy pants is hungry. Hi, I'm Mr. Poopy Butthole. I've always been here for you guys. Ooh-wee, ooh-wee, ha-ha, and I always will be. Ooh-wee.
That's the way the news goes.
Oh, y'all, we're gonna be fine. Oh, boy, oh, my.
You're not in any of my photos.
Oh, y'all, we're gonna be fine. You're not in any of mine. You were right about the universe. It's a crazy and chaotic place. Adventures are supposed to be simple and fun.
Maybe that's why we could use Mr. Poopy Butthole.
Ha ha. Ha ha. Ha ha. Ha ha.
Thanks, Mr. Poopy Butthole. I always could count on you.
Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee.
songify this.
Watch another episode, my friends, and your happiness will never end. And you should go watch Chat Trio, because we did this together, you